Bryan Riley, the Andel, Senior Policy Analyst in Trade Policy at the Heritage Foundation, heritage.org, on the line with us. The president, Bryan, welcome to the program.
Hey, good to be here. Did you just promote me to president? I would like that.
Did I?
No, I wouldn't want to deal with the economy. I said you are
Tom.
Maybe you could fix that. It's too much for me.
Well, this is the president is saying that we need to do something to stimulate the economy. Let's have more free trade deals. And I don't get it. Can you name for me any country that has ever promoted itself to prosperity by lowering barriers to trade?
I think we did that here in the United States. The fact that
over the last 30 years?
The fact that Nebraska can't put a tariff on a product coming across the border from South Dakota, that's an example of free trade.
No, I said any country, not any state.
Well, I'm using the United States, our internal policy, as an example.
But I'm asking about nations. We had from 1791 when Alexander Hamilton proposed it, and 1793 when Congress by and large accepted it, and President Washington put into place virtually all of Hamilton's plan, much of it by executive order. From 1793 until the mid-1980s, the average tariff on imported goods in the United States was over 20%, averaging around 31%, and as high as 46%, as low as 22%. But basically, it never went below that during that entire period of time, and we built the world's largest industrial power. Now, the average import tariff in the United States is under 2%, just under 2%, and we're wiped out. We don't make things here anymore. And I'm wondering, I'm looking at South Korea, for example. I wrote about this in my book, Rebooting the American Dream, and this is information that came from the Oxford economist Ha Jun Chang. He lays it out in his book, Bad Samaritans, The Myth of Free Trade, The Secret History of Capitalism. In 1961, South Korea was as poor as Kenya. Average GDP, average per capita annual income was $82. How did South Korea become one of the largest, most developed, and most powerful nations in the world?
Is that a rhetorical question? You're asking me.
I'm wondering if you know, because if you're a trade policy expert, I would assume that you know the story of South Korea, because it's almost identical to the story of Taiwan, and it's almost identical to the story of Japan, and it's almost identical to the story of how America became where we got, and how the UK got where they got in the 19th century.
Well, today, if you look around the world, Tom, I believe you'll find, and we published something called the Index of Economic Freedom, where you can look and see the countries that have low trade barriers and those that have high trade
Right, and you
barriers.
call freedom the stuff that's free for a transnational corporation, but I say it screws the average working person and it screws the economy. I realize that the billionaires make out really well and they call it free, but what South Korea, their major export in 1961, their major export was fish and human hair for wigs. And when General Park came to power in '61 in that military coup, he said, "Screw this! We're going to do what the U.S. did in 1791." He started the heavy and chemical industrialization program. They started their first steel mill, their first shipyard. Between '72 and '79, per capita income grew 5 times. They adopted protectionist slogans. They encouraged people to turn in neighbors who were, and humiliate them if they were seen smoking cigarettes that were made from out of the country. They made it impossible to buy cars made outside the country, just like Japan back in the 1970s threw all the American automakers out of Japan, which is what allowed Toyota and the Lexus and all that to come about. South Korea has imported bans, high tariff, and excise taxes on thousands of products, and that's how they became a major industrial power. So I repeat the question. Please name one country that became more prosperous, average working people became more prosperous as a result of free trade.
Well, you can look at countries like Hong Kong, countries like New Zealand, countries like Australia, who, when they lowered their trade barriers, people became more prosperous.
Hong Kong's prosperity was not based on manufacturing. And by the way, I've been in Hong Kong. I've worked in Hong Kong. Hong Kong had the last time I was there, which was 14 years ago, maybe 16 years ago, massive slums, massive poverty in Hong Kong. There is incredible wealth in Hong Kong, but it was made on trading. Hong Kong is the anomaly. If every country in the world said we're going to do exactly what Hong Kong does, Hong Kong wouldn't be there.
Well, they're an anomaly, but I think there's something we can learn from them. I think there's something we can learn from New Zealand. Even
Hong
South
Kong was
Korea.
The British sticking it to the Chinese. They won Hong Kong in the Opium Wars, and they said, okay, China, we're going to prevent you from modernizing and growing by putting a free trade port off your border. Hong Kong was used to keep China down by the Brits. Now that Hong Kong is part of China, they're no longer doing the free trade thing. Have you noticed?
Well, but here's one reason I think the trade agreements are important. As you mentioned, our trade barriers in the U.S. are fairly low. There are exceptions. We have high tariffs on shoes and on T-shirts, but many other countries have high tariffs on U.S. products. So what trade agreements can do is bring foreign trade barriers down. So if
But
South
they don't.
Korea,
There are no other country that's stupid enough to do what we've done.
well, that's exactly why we need trade agreements. That's what, if somebody
No,
has
it's why
high
we need to
barriers,
change our
when we
stupid
bring
trade
them down to our
policies and go
level.
back to what Alexander Hamilton proposed and every president up until basically Bill Clinton agreed with.
The problem then is you're transferring power away from people and you're giving it to politicians.
That's nonsense. You're
disagree with
transferring
you.
power to transnational corporations.
Well, I just disagree with you. And I think if you look around the world at countries that have more free trade, you're going to find more prosperity. And that's
Show me one.
Empirical.
Show me one. China doesn't have free trade. China makes it. In fact, here's Terry McAuliffe this weekend or yesterday on MSNBC. Terry McAuliffe, former head of the DNC, he's now an entrepreneur. He's building a car factory in China. Here's what he had to say.
Well, first, to enforce the trade agreements, we need, Chuck, in this country, a long-term strategic plan to create what I talk about are manufacturing jobs. We've lost 5 million manufacturing jobs last 10 years. 50,000 plants have closed. I'm doing it. I just announced a plant in China. We're ready to go. We laid the cornerstone 2 days ago in China, and we're off and building it. But we need...
So he's building a plant in China. So Chuck Todd says to him this. It's clip 2, Jake.
Now explain, you're building a factory in China, but this is going to create American jobs. There's a little bit of a disconnect.
What we're doing in China is because of the high tariffs, we have to build there. It's the fastest growing auto market in the world.
So there you have it. Now, China says, you want to sell in China? You got to make in China. They're looking at us going, you guys are stupid.
Well, if you look at an example of a product like an iPod or an iPad, maybe.
Made in China.
The final manufacturing is made in China, but much of the benefit goes to people in the United States, the engineers in California who design the product, the marketers, the retailers who sell the product. So the final assembly is done in China or someplace that has lower wages. That doesn't mean that we're somehow losing out.
Why not?
Because we get the high-wage jobs here in the United States. We're the ones that have.
So you're saying anybody who's just a high school graduate who might work on an assembly line, screw them?
Absolutely not.
We just want to have an economy that's for people with PhDs in engineering.
We want to create new high-wage jobs, not to lock people into.
What's wrong with creating new average wage jobs? What's wrong with creating manufacturing jobs where people can work for 30 years and have a pension and retire?
We certainly haven't done a good job of that in the last few years.
Not since we adopted free trade, we haven't.
Oh, I don't think it has anything to do with trade. If you look since NAFTA was passed, we created over 20 million jobs, net new jobs.
You're talking about during the Clinton administration.
I'm talking about during the Clinton and the George W. Bush.
Well, it was 23 million during Clinton, and then we've lost. You realize in the last 10 years we've closed 51,000 factories in the United States. Factories.
And we've lost jobs. The question is it because we're being more productive, or is it because of unfair foreign competition?
It's because of our insane trade policies that you guys are promoting.
And if you look in the Midwest, for example, we don't have as many farmers as we used to, but our output is as high as ever. Our manufacturing output remained very high until we hit the recession. We didn't have as many people employed in the manufacturing industry, mainly because workers were being more productive and able to produce more products with fewer workers. I don't think you can put this all on the backs of trade. We need more freedom and more free trade. It's not as simple as throwing up
more freedom
walls.
for transnationals. Well, Bryan Riley, heritage.org. Thank you, Bryan, for dropping by.
Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It just amazes me. Well, I'll leave you to your own decisions. Ross Perot won 20% of the vote on this issue, remember?